coverage you can count on. KOMU 8 News starts now.
Well, if you're hoping for sunshine on your Monday, think again. And we're not just talking about cloudy skies. We're talking a chance of snow. Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Spain. Thanks for joining us tonight. Let's head right over to Chief Meteorologist Kenton Jawicki. And Kenton, I can't believe we're talking about snow in October.
I know, and if we get some snow tomorrow, actually, if Columbia Regional Airport, if we get 0.01 inches of snowfall, right, just a little bit of a trace, a hundredth of an inch, it'll be the record second earliest, tied actually, second earliest for snowfall accumulation for a season. We have winter weather advisories in effect here for these purple counties. It's mainly along and over towards the west of Highway 63, where we expect rain and snow to mix together, especially for those locations. Some other places, though, still could see a little bit of snow mixing in with that rain. Right now, that snow is still up in Nebraska and Iowa over into Kansas. Tracking that hour by hour into our area for a first look. Tomorrow, 6 a.m., we're going to start to see some of these, either some drizzle or maybe even some flurries start to come down. It's going to be a slow start, though. It will slowly move in as the morning comes along. You can see we have rain, we have a mix of rain and snow both, and then we have some snow up to the north of that, right? It all depends on our temperatures here. Most temperatures only changing a degree or two, especially throughout the atmosphere, is going to change what we're seeing at the surface. It's really going to start to come together, though, in the afternoon. The morning's not the biggest deal. It's actually the afternoon when we're going to see the bulk of our rainfall and the bulk of our snow and our rain mix as well. You are going to see some snow come down likely in Columbia. I think you're going to see some snow tomorrow. You're going to see some white stuff falling from the sky. Eventually, by the end of the afternoon, it will start to push out for total accumulation. It's not much, but at least a dusting to an inch here for some of us as we head into the afternoon. I'll track this and dig in more coming up. Emily.
Okay, thanks, Kenton. A teenager died after a shooting early this morning in South Columbia. It happened on West Brookside Lane, just off Route K near the Brookside townhomes. CPD responded to a shots fired call around 1 a.m. where they say they found a 17-year-old with gunshot wounds. He was later pronounced dead at the scene. I spoke with Reverend James Gray earlier tonight, who says he personally knows the victim's family. He says the community is hurting and asks for prayers for the teenager's family. CPD hasn't named a suspect. The department says it's asking anyone with information to call them or Crime Stoppers at 573-875-TIPS. Taking a look now at your COVID-19 numbers. The state is reporting just over 2,000 new cases in the last 24 hours. The state also added 4 new deaths. Over the last week, there have been about 11,000 cases in Missouri. The single-day average for new cases is just over 1,500. In Boone County, we saw 43 new reported cases. Jefferson City's public middle schools will return to in-person learning tomorrow. This comes after they closed for 2 weeks due to COVID-19 cases. Students from Lewis and Clark and Thomas Jefferson Middle Schools will head back inside buildings tomorrow. The district said in an email, quote, "We believe the past 2 weeks have allowed adequate time to stop any spread of COVID-19 within the school environment and for any current cases or quarantines to run their course." Some parents are concerned with this quick transition from online to in-person. One Jefferson City School District parent says he made the transition last week for his son in elementary school. He says the transition hasn't been easy, but he's glad some students are seeing normalcy again.
Feels pretty good, kind of get back to the way, a little bit kind of like the way things used to be. Hopefully we can keep it going in the right direction, and hopefully this will all be over soon.
Since school began on August 24th, 11 students and 5 staff members at Lewis and Clark Middle tested positive. That's according to the school district's COVID-19 tracker. It also shows 22 students and 4 staff members tested positive at Thomas Jefferson Middle. Well, dozens of people went out today to get a look at that damage at the 400-year-old Big Bur Oak tree in Boone County. Crews worked to put out a fire inside that tree after it was believed to be struck by lightning Friday. Pieces of charred bark and foam from the firefighters still cover the ground there. The owner of the property says even with a hole in the top of the tree, he expects it to live for many more years.
But it's lived through a lot: floods, droughts, tornadoes, lightning strikes. But it's tough, but it's lucky, and it is old, and it's on a decline, and I think it will probably outlive all of us.
It sure is tough. The owner says lightning rods were installed but stolen off the tree several years ago. An arborist will inspect the tree again in the spring to see if it needs any additional care. Turning now to the Supreme Court nomination. The Senate has voted to advance Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett toward final confirmation. The Senate voted 51 to 48 to advance the nomination to a final vote, despite Democrats arguing the nominee should be chosen by the winner of this year's election. The final vote is scheduled for tomorrow. But Republican senators are losing one crucial vote tomorrow. Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine says she will vote against the nomination. This comes one day after Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski said she would vote yes on Judge Barrett. Earlier, Murkowski said she would not support a vote. 9 days until Election Day, and the campaigns are trying to make every minute count, but some hiccups along the way for the Trump campaign. Today we learned at least 5 people on Vice President Pence's campaign have tested positive for the coronavirus, including at least 2 close contacts, a longtime political advisor and his chief of staff. Despite that close contact, Pence says he will not quarantine and went to North Carolina today for a rally. He said he and Second Lady Karen Pence have tested negative. Democratic vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris responded to reports of COVID-19 in Vice President Pence's inner circle, saying Pence should follow guidelines and suspend his travel. Her comments come weeks after she suspended travel over a weekend because of COVID-19 cases within her campaign staff. Earlier, she said she did not come into close contact with those staffers. Well, in local elections, it might be easy to skip over a race with a 6-time incumbent facing a political unknown, but this one caught our eye. We found out we knew very little about one candidate who could potentially represent Missouri on Capitol Hill. The story of that candidate who has been absent for much of the election season when we come back.
Temperatures are cooling into the lower 40s, but our ground temperatures, our soil, still in the upper 40s. That's going to play into how much snow we actually accumulate tomorrow. I'll tell you all about it coming up.
Welcome back. In the 3rd District congressional race, a 6-time incumbent is going up against a candidate many have never heard about. She's so unknown, some have accused her of being a ghost candidate running for Congress. KOMI 8's Catherine Merck is in the newsroom after taking a look at the race and the candidate who has caused some confusion. Catherine.
Emily, we've been profiling various local races over the past couple of weeks, and you might think it'd be easy to overlook a 6-term incumbent going up against a political unknown. However, after taking a deeper look at the 3rd District congressional race, I found out that we know very little about a candidate who could potentially represent Missouri in the halls of Congress.
I've been around a long time, and those folks all know who I am.
This is the 6-time incumbent going up against a political newcomer.
Megan Rezebeck was a complete and total shock for everyone in my party.
She defeated this man, Dennis Oglesby, in the August Democratic primary by extraordinary margins. Megan Rezebeck took nearly 70% of the vote. And for a time, Oglesby admits he doubted if Rezebeck was a ghost candidate.
There was no fundraising. No town halls, really nothing was going on. No yard signs, I mean, you name it, it wasn't happening.
So we checked it out ourselves. Rezebeck does have a website and a Facebook page, but her website has multiple mistakes, including incorrectly calling the Green New Deal the New Green Deal. This is the only video on her page. Some Facebook commenters said they wanted to hear from the candidate herself instead of the music.
I reached out to her several times and asked her if she'd like to debate. She responded once and said yes, reached out again, saw the messages were not being read on Facebook.
Her campaign has not filed Federal Election Commission reports. Oglesby did, and he raised about $17,000.
So it was beyond devastating.
Rezebeck did file for the election earlier this year and paid the filing fee by check. We used those filings to find her address, and I drove to Jefferson County. No one answered. I left a handwritten note with my phone number, and I also sent emails through her campaign website. I tried to Facebook message her through her campaign and personal profile. Her campaign Facebook page listed a phone number on it, and I've called that number at least 10 times over the past 4 weeks.
Please leave your message for...
It's done this every time.
Megan Legbeck.
I've still not been able to reach her.
Sorry, mailbox is full.
It became clear that this was not necessarily an overly involved candidate.
Amanda Morrison is with the nonpartisan group Missouri Made, which helps support women running for elected office. And she says this candidate is making that difficult.
I really think at the end of the day, it's disadvantaging to the constituents and it hurts their ability to be heard in Congress.
And with the November 3rd election just around the corner, Congressman Luetkemeyer is going to keep running his race, focusing on issues of job creation, the budget, and agriculture.
We're going to run our campaign, and we're going to talk about our issues and the way we believe them, and she does her own thing.
But in the last days of the race, this last-minute pitch is a first.
If she's going to do nothing, that's up to her.
Rezabek's challenger from the primary said she could have won that race because she had the top spot on the ballot, and that's chosen at random. And there are studies that do support that statement. However, on the November 3rd election, the current congressman will hold that top spot. In the newsroom, I'm Catherine Merck, KOMU 8 News.
Colder temperatures rolling in. We have rain and snow for tomorrow, more rain this week. Plus, after that, I have my latest Show Me Climate report. Plenty to get to. Stay with us. Welcome back to KOMU 8 News after the game. Thanks for staying up late with us. We have a winter weather advisory in effect tomorrow already in October. You can see it's right here from Macon County all the way down to Morgan County and areas to the west of there because of a rain-snow mix on Monday. Could create a few slushy spots on the roads. We are in a storm mode 1 for tomorrow. Here's another look at our storm mode index when we consider the fall or the winter conditions. So for number 1, nuisance weather is possible and it's expected tomorrow for some of us. Some of us won't see any nuisance weather besides just some rain. Take note, but not necessarily a reason to worry. Always use a little bit of caution anytime you see anything frozen falling from the sky and you're on the roads. But of course, with common sense, you should be okay. Looking at snow and a little bit of ice there. And by ice, I mean a windshield glaze is going to be possible for some areas, especially along and west of Missouri Highway 5, and that goes through Boonville, north and south. So areas west of there could have just don't be too surprised if you get a little bit of a windshield ice glaze there. Nothing significant, but just something I want you to know about in case it happens. Otherwise, up to 1 inch on grassy surfaces for snowfall in some locations, also mainly in western and northern mid-Missouri. When we look at our temperatures currently, they're still in the 40s, but starting to get into the 30s, a little bit over towards the west. All of us will be in the 30s tomorrow morning. Here's another look at this track. You can see by 6 a.m. could have a little bit of drizzle out there or some fog even. That's a possibility too. Meteorologist Tim Schmidt will be tracking this all morning on KOMU 8 News today, so be sure to tune in with him before you head out the door for sure. Meteorologist Matt Beckwith will be in throughout the late morning and midday time period as well to keep everyone updated. And this is what's happening. In the morning, it's going to be a slow start. This moisture starts to move in. Of course, depending on temperatures, you're going to rain, a mix, or maybe even a little bit of snow. But I really don't think a lot of that even snow is going to come together until we head into the afternoon. We're going to have more atmospheric forcing in the afternoon, and that's going to allow this to become more widespread for this precipitation to finally start falling down wherever you're at. And that's going to lead to a bit of snow in some locations, a mix even, I think, here where you're seeing just the snow. I think it'll be kind of a wet mix, a very wet snow regardless, of course. And remember, it's going to be hitting the ground, which is not very warm, but it's warmer, right? It's above freezing. Our soil temperatures in the 40s now, in the upper 40s across mid-Missouri, still at least in the 40s likely tomorrow. Some could get into the upper 30s eventually once it starts to cool down with the cooler rain coming down. But a lot of that's going to force any snow to melt on contact with that. So roads, again, shouldn't be a huge issue tomorrow, even where we are seeing a bit more snow. We're also not, the only thing we're looking at for accumulation is on grassy surfaces because there's a little bit of air between those grass blades, could help to accumulate some of this. And then also elevated surfaces, of course, like bridges that don't have that soil temperature underneath it. That will then push out as we head into the afternoon or late afternoon and evening, and will be drier then. As we head into our snow accumulation here on Snowcast, again, not much in the morning, only a few flurries coming down. And then for accumulation, this graph trying to show you what it thinks is going to accumulate. Don't take this necessarily at heart because remember, some of this is going to be melting on the surface. So I don't expect Columbia to necessarily get that inch of total snowfall accumulation. I think it'll be less than that, but up to an inch for some areas here that are going to be dealing with this snow. Otherwise, we are dry the rest of our nighttime. On Tuesday afternoon, a bit more rain will start to come back into play. And we have more rain on Wednesday night into Thursday also, so we're not done with that. But this should be the last of our winter weather. 35 for our low temperature tonight. Tomorrow we're only warming a couple degrees, around 37. And then looking ahead, there is a warm up and there is sunshine in the forecast. Take a look at this. For the next few days through Thursday, we have these rain chances. But then on Friday, sunshine comes out. High temperatures around 60 through the weekend, including on Halloween. It's going to be seasonal. That is a seasonal temperature for the beginning of November. And we're going to hold on to that sunshine and dry conditions into next week. That's a look at your weather. Here are your lottery numbers. Good luck. We'll be right back with the latest Show Me Climate report. The wide-ranging issue of climate change is increasing. For my final chat with Yale climate scientist Jen Marlin, I ask arguably two of the biggest questions scientists can answer in 2020. How worried do you think we should be?
I think this is the greatest threat that humanity has faced today. I think we should be worried, but not. There's a difference between being alarmed and being alarmist. Okay, so the planet is going to survive. We're not talking about the end of the planet, but we are talking about the end of many species if we don't change. And we are talking about the massive migration of people from coastal cities inland if we don't reduce our emissions. We're talking, our infrastructure in our towns and cities is already crumbling and aging. And so when you make hurricanes worse and flooding worse on top of the problems we already have, this is a recipe for massive economic damages and fallout that we should really be working hard to avoid. And we can avoid it, but we need more electric vehicle charging stations, for example. And that takes coordinated government action to implement so that we can transition away from putting gas in our cars to charging them. We need the infrastructure to support those changes.
That leads me to then, for that infrastructure, right? You were just talking about the government. So therefore, how important is Election Day?
Election Day is incredibly important. And if you care about climate, which is affecting everything we do now, not just polar bears and melting ice, it's affecting local flooding. It's affecting our bridges and tunnels. It's affecting our health because hotter days mean that you have more asthma in a place that has any sort of pollution already. It causes plants to produce more pollen, which makes allergies worse. And so if you care about all these things that climate change affects, then you want your leader to have a plan. You want your leader to acknowledge climate change, and you want them to have a plan to address it and keep us safe and healthy. And so you should make sure that whoever you're voting for has a plan to deal with this problem, because it is a serious risk.
There is no avoiding the politics of this issue. Given the other issues in the current campaign, there is one, this is one that won't be going away after Election Day. So I reached out to the candidates for governor, state senate, and our local congressional seat. State Senate candidate Judy Baker responded, saying she trusts the scientists and believes we need more, quote, investment in public-private partnerships that innovate around renewable energy. Local congressional candidate Lindsay Simmons also responded, saying she has been working as an environmental regulatory attorney since law school and wants to, quote, bring high-paying jobs to Missouri while solving a true global crisis. Governor Parson and Representative Hartzler both have previously made comments about the issue. Their comments, along with the other candidates' full interviews, will be on our website, komu.com/climate. They're there right now, and we'll add more comments as we get them. And you, too, can always ask your elected leaders. Coming up next on Show Me Climate, I'm going to be talking with local experts about the Missouri forest management and land use and how that affects our agriculture economy and broader issues of biodiversity. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Another look at our 8-day forecast. It's an interesting one because we have some snow out there tomorrow, of course. Shouldn't accumulate too much except for up to an inch on some grassy and elevated surfaces. Then we're at 40 degrees on Tuesday with more rain. Dry Wednesday, but then Wednesday evening through Thursday, more rain. And then we're dry Friday onward into November.
Well, Ben Kenton, anything can happen. It's 2020. There's a chance for snow. Anything can happen.
little bit of anything.
It's going to be beautiful weather for Halloween, and I don't know how many kids are going to be out trick-or-treating
Right.
in 1 week, of course. But
you've got plenty to talk about tonight in Sports Extra.
we certainly do. It is a busy time of year in sports.